For a moment she thought he might lash out further. Instead, he released her wrist abruptly and stepped back his handsome face, transforming with disturbing speed into a mask of wounded innocence. "I can't believe you'd accuse me of cheating," he said, his voice suddenly soft and hurt. "After everything we've been through together, I thought our love meant more to you than that." It was a tactic Sophia had seen before, this rapid shift from aggression to victimhood, designed to make her feel guilty for questioning him. In the past it had worked. Tonight, with the memory of his fingers digging into her wrist still fresh, she wasn't buying it. "I'm going to bed," she said flatly. "I have an early start tomorrow." As she turned away, Ethan's voice followed her sharp with resentment. "Fine, go to your mountain retreat. Just don't be surprised if I'm not sitting here waiting when you get back." Sophia paused in the doorway of their bedroom, suddenly weary beyond words. "Is that a threat or a promise?" she asked quietly, not bothering to look back at his reaction before closing the door behind her. She slept in the guest room that night, her dreams troubled by conflicting images. Ethan, as he had been when they first met, charming and seemingly devoted. Ethan, as he was now manipulative and cruel. And Daniel, steady and honorable, looking at her with those thoughtful gray eyes that saw far too much. The next morning Sophia left while Ethan was still sleeping or pretending to be. The drive to the mountain resort provided a welcome opportunity to clear her head, the winding roads and breathtaking scenery gradually easing the tension that had knotted her shoulders since the previous night's confrontation. By the time she arrived at the rustic, luxurious lodge nestled among towering pines, Sophia had managed to push her marital troubles to the back of her mind, determined to focus on the professional opportunity the retreat represented. Daniel greeted the team in the lodge's grand lobby, his typically formal attire replaced by well-fitted jeans and a cashmere sweater that softened his appearance without diminishing his natural authority. His eyes found Sophia's as she entered, lighting with a warm professionalism that made her simultaneously relieved and oddly disappointed. "Glad you made it safely," he said, approaching her with a colleague in tow. "The mountain roads can be tricky this time of year." "The drive was actually quite peaceful," Sophia replied, matching his professional tone. Daniel nodded, seeming to understand all she wasn't saying. "Allow me to introduce you to Nathan Lee, our new marketing strategist. Nathan, this is Sophia Bennett, the brilliant mind behind our client retention program." The introduction set the tone for the day, busy, focused, and scrupulously professional. Daniel maintained a careful distance, including Sophia in every discussion, but never singling her out in a way that might fuel speculation. His behavior was beyond reproach, exactly what she would have wanted under the circumstances. So why did she feel a twinge of disappointment? The first day of the retreat passed in a blur of presentations and strategy sessions, culminating in a team dinner in the lodge's private dining room. Sophia contributed actively to discussions, her insights earning nods of approval from Daniel and her colleagues alike. If she occasionally caught Daniel watching her with a thoughtfulness that went beyond professional appreciation, she pretended not to notice. The second day followed a similar pattern until late afternoon, when the scheduled activities concluded earlier than expected. With a few hours of free time before dinner, most of the team dispersed to enjoy the resort's amenities, the spa, the indoor pool, or simply the comfort of their rooms. Sophia opted for a solitary walk along one of the shorter hiking trails, needing fresh air and exercise after a day of intensive discussions. The autumn afternoon was perfect for hiking, the crisp mountain air filled with the scent of pine and the beginning hints of winter. She had been walking for perhaps 20 minutes when a familiar voice called her name. Turning, she saw Daniel approaching on the trail behind her, his long strides quickly closing the distance between them. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said as he drew near. "I saw you heading out and thought I might join you if that's all right. It's been too long since I've enjoyed these trails." Sophia hesitated only briefly before nodding. Of course, the trail's open to everyone. They fell into step beside each other, a comfortable silence stretching between them as they made their way deeper into the forest. The trail curved gently upward, eventually opening onto a small clearing with a breathtaking view of the valley below. "This is one of my favorite spots," Daniel said, coming to stand beside her at the edge of the lookout. "No matter how many times I see it, the view never fails to put things in perspective." Sophia nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Against the backdrop of the ancient mountains and sprawling wilderness, human concerns seemed small and temporary, even the turmoil of her marriage. "You seem preoccupied today," Daniel observed quietly, "more than the retreat would account for." She glanced at him, surprised by his perception. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been paying attention." His tone was gentle, free of any implication that might make her uncomfortable. "Is everything all right, Sophia?" The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid her carefully maintained composure. How long had it been since Ethan had asked her that question and actually cared about the answer? "It's nothing," she said automatically, then shook her head, amending her response. "Actually, that's not true." It's complicated personal. Daniel nodded, not pressing further. I understand. Just know that if you ever need someone to listen, I'm here as a friend, he added carefully. The word friend hung between them both. An offer and a boundary. Sophia felt a rush of gratitude for his understanding. Thank you, she said simply. Then, surprising herself, she added, things at home aren't good. Daniel was silent for a moment, his eyes on the distant mountains. I suspected as much, he finally replied. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. But suddenly, Sophia found that she did want to talk about it, needed to, perhaps. The burden of pretending everything was fine had become exhausting. My husband and I, she began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. How did one summarize a marriage that had begun with such promise, only to deteriorate into suspicion and resentment? You don't seem happy, Daniel said quietly. I've noticed it for some time now. Sophia looked at him, struck by the simple truth of his observation. No, she admitted. I'm not. May I ask you something, Sophia? When she nodded, Daniel turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Why do you stay with someone who clearly doesn't appreciate what he has in you? The directness of the question caught her off guard. It's not that simple, she began, but even to her own ears the response sounded weak. Isn't it? Daniel's voice was gentle but insistent. You're an extraordinary woman, Sophia, intelligent, capable, kind. You deserve someone who sees that, who treasures it. There was no mistaking his meaning now, despite his promise to maintain professional boundaries. Daniel was once again revealing his feelings for her, though in a more measured way than during his first confession. I made vows, Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper. For better or worse, and it seems you've had far more of the worse lately, Daniel observed. There comes a point when staying out of obligation becomes self-destruction. His words struck uncomfortably close to thoughts Sophia had been trying to suppress for months. I still believe in giving everything a chance to work, she said, though with less conviction than she might have once had. Daniel studied her face for a long moment before nodding slowly. That's one of the many things I admire about you. Your commitment, your integrity. He took a deep breath as if gathering courage. But I hope you know that if you ever decide you've given enough chances, there are other possibilities waiting for you, better ones. The implication was clear. Daniel was offering himself as one of those possibilities, not demanding, not pressuring, but simply making his continued interest known. Sophia felt a flutter of something dangerously close to yearning. Here was a man who saw her clearly, who valued her mind and spirit, who offered a vision of partnership that seemed worlds away from the troubled relationship she currently had. Danieli, she began. But he gently raised a hand to stop her. You don't need to say anything, he assured her. I shouldn't have spoken so directly, especially given our professional relationship. He paused, looking out at the mountains again. I just wanted you to know that you have options, that you deserve happiness. Sophia nodded, unable to trust her voice. The simple kindness of his words, free from manipulation or expectation, moved her more deeply than any of Ethan's passionate declarations ever had. They stood together in silence for several minutes, watching as the setting sun painted the valley in hues of gold and amber. When Daniel finally suggested they head back before darkness fell, Sophia felt as though something fundamental had shifted between them. Not crossed a line exactly, but acknowledged a possibility that both thrilled and terrified her. As they walked back to the lodge, Daniel maintained a respectful distance, their conversation turning to safer topics, work projects, industry trends, the beauty of the landscape around them. Yet Sophia couldn't help sensing an undercurrent of meaning in their simplest exchanges, a connection that transcended words, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine a different future than the one she had resigned herself to, a future where she was valued, respected, and truly loved. Whether that future involved Daniel specifically, she wasn't ready to consider, but the mere fact that she could envision happiness beyond her marriage felt like a significant step. What Sophia didn't realize was that this newfound clarity would soon be tested in ways she couldn't possibly have anticipated. Chapter 6. Third, Proposal. The honest question. The aftermath of the company retreat brought subtle but significant changes to Sophia's life. At work, she and Daniel maintained their professional dynamic, though there was a new undercurrent of understanding between them. At home, the distance between Sophia and Ethan grew wider with each passing day. Their conversations reduced to curt exchanges about bills and schedules. What little physical intimacy remained in their marriage had evaporated. Ethan spent most nights out, returning in the early hours smelling of alcohol and perfume. When Sophia attempted to discuss their relationship, Ethan would either lash out with accusations about her and Daniel, or adopt an injured manner, portraying himself as the victim of her career ambitions. You've changed, he accused one evening, after she declined his sudden drunken advances. You used to be fun, spontaneous. Now it's all work, work, work. Sophia had simply stared at him, wondering how this handsome stranger had once been the center of her world. People change, Ethan. Sometimes they grow up. He'd sneered at that, reaching for the whiskey bottle on the nightstand. If growing up means becoming a frigid workaholic, I'll pass F. The comment had stung, but not as deeply as it once might have. Sophia was beginning to see Ethan's barbs for what they were: desperate attempts to maintain control over her, to make her doubt herself just enough to stay under his influence. It wasn't working anymore. One rainy Tuesday evening, 2 months after the retreat, Sophia found herself working late again. A major client had unexpectedly moved up their deadline, requiring last-minute adjustments to their proposal. The office had emptied hours ago, leaving Sophia alone with her spreadsheets and presentation slides, or so she thought, until a knock at her open door revealed Daniel standing there, a paper bag in his hand. "I saw your light still on," he said. "Thought you might need sustenance." He held up the bag. The deli on the corner was still open. "I hope you like pastrami." Sophia smiled, suddenly aware of the hollow feeling in her stomach. "I love pastrami, actually." "Thank you." Daniel entered, placing the bag on her desk and pulling up a chair. As he unpacked the sandwiches, Sophia found herself studying him with new eyes. In the months since his confessions, Daniel had been nothing but respectful, never pressuring her or making her uncomfortable. Yet his quiet presence in her life had become a solid anchor amidst the turbulence of her failing marriage. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, before Daniel gestured to her computer screen. "The Westridge proposal. I thought that wasn't due until next week." Sophia sighed, setting down her sandwich. They moved up the timeline. Apparently, their board meets earlier than expected. Daniel nodded, understanding the implications. "Can I help?" Two minds might make quicker work of it. The offer was tempting, but Sophia shook her head. "I appreciate it, but I've got it under control. Just need to refine a few sections." "I've never doubted your ability to handle anything that comes your way," Daniel said with a small smile. "But the offer stands." As their impromptu dinner concluded, Daniel began gathering the wrappers and napkins. "I should let you get back to it," he said. Though he made no immediate move to leave, Sophia watched him, aware of the comfortable silence that had fallen between them. A stark contrast to the tense atmosphere that pervaded her home. "Thank you again for dinner. It was a nice surprise." Daniel met her eyes, his expression open and unguarded. "I've been trying to keep my distance," he admitted quietly, "to respect your space and your decisions." "I know," Sophia acknowledged. "I've appreciated that. But the truth is," Daniel continued, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes, "seeing you every day, working so closely with you, it hasn't made my feelings any less intense. If anything, my admiration for you has only grown." Sophia felt her pulse quicken. "Daniel, Please," he interrupted gently, "let me finish." He paused, then asked with unexpected directness, "Is it because I'm ugly?" The question was so surprising, so contrary to everything she knew about Daniel's confidence, that Sophia could only stare at him in confusion. What Daniel's smile was self-deprecating, but not without a hint of genuine curiosity. "Every other woman in this office would jump at the chance to have dinner with me, let alone anything more. You're the only one who consistently keeps me at arm's length." He leaned forward slightly. "So I have to wonder, is it my appearance that doesn't appeal to you?" The absurdity of the question nearly made Sophia laugh, but the sincere vulnerability behind it stopped her. "Daniel, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." She hesitated, then decided honesty was called for. "You're an incredibly attractive man by any standard." And he was, though not conventionally handsome, in the same way as Ethan, whose looks were almost model perfect. Daniel possessed a compelling masculinity that emanated from his confidence, intelligence, and the genuine kindness in his gray eyes. "Then why," he asked simply, "why do you keep choosing a man who clearly makes you unhappy over someone who would move mountains to see you smile?" The directness of the question struck Sophia like a physical blow. For months, she had been dancing around this very issue, making excuses for Ethan's behavior, while keeping Daniel's genuine affection at bay. "It's not that simple," she began, then stopped herself. "Actually, maybe it is that simple. I made vows, Daniel, for better or worse. If I walk away at the first sign of trouble." The first sign, Daniel's voice was incredulous but not unkind. "Sophia, with all due respect, this is hardly the first sign of trouble. From everything you've said and everything you haven't said, but I can see in your eyes your marriage has been troubled for a long time." He was right, of course. The trouble had begun almost immediately after their wedding, with Ethan's lack of responsibility, his constant taking without giving, his gradual emotional abandonment, and eventually his blatant infidelity. "You deserve better," Daniel continued quietly. "You deserve someone who sees your worth, who cherishes your brilliance, instead of being threatened by it." Someone who would never dream of making you doubt yourself. His words pierced the armor Sophia had built around her heart. For a moment she allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to be loved by a man like Daniel, respected, supported, cherished for exactly who she was. "I can't," she whispered, though with less conviction than before. "Not yet. I need to resolve things with Ethan, one way or another, before I can even think about." She trailed off, unable to articulate the possibilities that Daniel's presence in her life represented. Daniel nodded, accepting her boundary without argument. "I understand, and I'll wait, Sophia. Not because I expect anything from you, but because someone like you is worth waiting for." The simple sincerity of his declaration moved her more than any grand gesture could have. Here was a man who respected her enough to accept her decisions, even when they didn't align with his desires. A sharp contrast to Ethan's manipulations and demands. "Thank you," she said softly, "for understanding, for not pushing." Daniel stood collecting the remains of their dinner. "I should go let you finish your work." At the door, he paused, turning back to her with a gentle smile. "Just remember, Sophia, you're not trapped. You always have choices, and whatever you decide, I'll respect it." With that, he was gone, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts and the half-finished proposal on her screen. She tried to return to work, but Daniel's words kept echoing in her mind. "You're not trapped. You always have choices." The realization was simultaneously terrifying and liberating. For months, years, really, she had been allowing her vows to become chains, binding her to a man who had broken his own promises countless times over. What did loyalty mean when it was entirely one-sided? What value did commitment have when it became an excuse for accepting mistreatment? As Sophia finally packed up her things to head home, she felt a new resolve forming within her. She would have one final honest conversation with Ethan. She would lay all her cards on the table: her knowledge of his infidelity, her exhaustion with his irresponsibility, her growing awareness that what they had wasn't love but a toxic imitation of it. And depending on his response, she would finally make a choice, not between Daniel and Ethan, but between the life of quiet desperation she'd been accepting and the possibility of something better. What Sophia didn't realize as she drove home through the rain-slicked streets was that fate was about to make that choice for her in a way she could never have anticipated. Chapter 7. The stormy night. Thunder rumbled ominously. As Sophia drove home, her mind still turning over the conversation with Daniel. Raindrops hammered against her windshield with increasing ferocity. By the time she pulled into the parking garage of her apartment building, the storm had escalated into a full-blown tempest. Inside her apartment, Sophia found only darkness and silence. No sign of Ethan, which was hardly surprising these days. After a simple dinner eaten alone, she settled on the couch with a glass of wine, watching the storm rage outside. News alerts pinged on her phone, warning of flash floods and advising against unnecessary travel. A violent thunderclap shook the building, and moments later the lights flickered out completely, plunging the apartment into darkness, broken only by occasional lightning flashes. Sophia was contemplating what to do next when her work phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. "Hello," she answered, surprised to hear from him again. "Sophia," his voice was all business. "I'm sorry to call so late, but we have a situation with the Westridge proposal. Their CFO just called me directly. We need to completely revamp the strategy section before their board meeting tomorrow." Sophia felt a surge of adrenaline. "I'm on my way back to the office." In this storm, Daniel sounded concerned. "The weather warnings are serious. The proposal has to be ready," Sophia insisted. "It's too important." Daniel hesitated before agreeing. "I'll meet you there, but please be careful driving." As she was gathering her keys, Sophia paused, feeling obligated to let Ethan know. She dialed his number unsurprised when it went to voicemail. "Ethan, it's me. There's an emergency at work. With this storm, I might not make it back tonight, so don't wait up." What she didn't know was that in Daniel's office, 20 blocks away, Daniel had overheard every word. She had accidentally called him, rather than Ethan, distracted in the dark apartment. "Sophia, it's Daniel. I think you called me by mistake." There was a moment of startled silence. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was trying to call Ethan." "No need to apologize," Daniel assured her. "But listen, I've been monitoring the weather reports. I don't think either of us should risk driving in these conditions. But the proposal can be handled remotely." Daniel finished. "We both have VPN access. We can collaborate via video call." The genuine concern in his voice warmed her. How long had it been since Ethan had shown similar care for her well-being? "All right," she agreed. "Remote collaboration it is." For the next 3 hours they worked seamlessly together, revamping the strategy in response to the competitor's move. It was nearly 1 a.m. when they finally completed the revisions. "That should do it," Daniel said, stifling a yawn. "I'll review it again in the morning, but I think we've addressed everything." "Agreed," Sophia replied, rubbing her tired eyes. Thank you for suggesting the remote option. The storm has only gotten worse. Another crack of thunder emphasized her point. Daniel's face showed concern. Is your power still out? Yes, Sophia confirmed. They're estimating at least morning before it's restored. No heat then, Daniel observed, noting the sweater she'd wrapped around herself. Sophia shrugged. I'll manage with extra blankets. Daniel frowned. My building has a generator. Full power. Heat everything. He held up a hand as Sophia began to respond. I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate. I have a guest room that's entirely at your disposal. Sophia hesitated, aware of the potential complications. Given our conversation earlier, it might not be the best idea. I understand your concern, but I'm offering as your colleague and friend. You have my word that I will respect all boundaries. Sophia believed him. Before she could respond, her phone beeped with a severe weather alert. Flash flooding had made several major roads impassable. It seems the decision might be made for us, Daniel said. It's not safe to be on the roads now. Sophia's practical side won out. Thank you for the offer. I accept strictly as colleagues, of course. The journey to Daniel's building was treacherous, with Sophia navigating flooded intersections with white-knuckled concentration. Daniel was waiting in the lobby when she arrived, dressed casually in jeans and a gray sweater. You made it, he said, relief evident. I was starting to worry. Daniel's apartment was tastefully furnished with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering what would normally be a spectacular view of the city. As he made tea, Sophia noticed there were no photos of romantic partners, just family pictures and group shots with friends. I didn't know you were married before, Sophia said when Daniel mentioned his ex-wife. Daniel nodded. It ended 7 years ago. Vanessa was focused on her career as a photojournalist, always traveling. I wanted stability, eventually a family. I'm sorry, Sophia said, genuinely moved by this personal revelation. Daniel shrugged. It taught me what I value. In a relationship, communication, shared goals, mutual respect. He met her eyes briefly, the willingness to put each other first when it matters. The unspoken comparison to her own marriage hung in the air. They spent the next hour in comfortable conversation about books and travel, carefully avoiding any mention of their earlier, more personal discussion. When Sophia yawned, unable to hide her exhaustion, Daniel immediately showed her to the guest room. Thank you truly, Sophia said at the door. Not just for the shelter, but for being someone I can count on. Daniel's smile was warm but restrained. Always, Sophia. Sleep well. In the guest room, Sophia curled under the plush comforter, listening to the storm still raging outside. The contrast between the chaos of the weather and the peaceful sanctuary of Daniel's home wasn't lost on her. It paralleled the turmoil of her marriage versus the steady, respectful connection she'd found with Daniel. As sleep began to claim her, Sophia wondered if the storm in her life with Ethan was something to be weathered or something to be escaped. What if, like tonight, there was a warmer, safer place waiting, if she only had the courage to make the journey? Little did she know that the next day would force her to answer that question once and for all. Chapter 8. The Shocking Discovery. The storm had subsided by morning, leaving behind a city recovering from nature's fury. Sophia awoke in Daniel's guest room, feeling more rested than she had in months. After a quick breakfast, they headed to the office together for the Westridge presentation. The meeting was a resounding success. Their late-night revisions had secured the account. We couldn't have done this without you, Daniel told Sophia quietly amid the team's celebration, his gray eyes warm with genuine appreciation. The professional triumph filled Sophia with a sense of accomplishment that had been sorely missing from her personal life. As the workday wound down, she found herself reluctant to return to her apartment to the cold reality of her failing marriage. I should head home, she said to Daniel. The power should be back on by now. Daniel nodded. If you'd like company for the drive, I'd be happy to follow you. Some areas might still be flooded. Sophia hesitated, aware of the growing intimacy between them. That's kind of you, but I think I'll be fine. As she drove home through streets still showing evidence of the storm's fury, Sophia's mind turned to Ethan. Had he even noticed her absence? The answer was waiting for her in the form of her apartment, exactly as she had left it, with no sign that Ethan had returned at all during the night. The power was still out, though emergency crews were visible on the street. Sophia was considering what to do about dinner when her phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, surprising her. He rarely called. Babe, finally. Ethan's tone was unusually cheerful. I've been trying the apartment phone all day. Just got the message about the power outage in your area. It's been out since last night, Sophia confirmed, wondering at his sudden interest. Well, I'm heading home now. Just wrapped up some promising meetings. The background noise suggested he was in a bar rather than any kind of business setting. Thought maybe we could order in, open some wine, make a night of it. The unexpected overture caught Sophia off guard. That sounds nice. She managed confusion, evident in her voice. But the power's still out. No delivery places are operating in our area yet. No problem. I'll pick up something on the way. Candles, wine, the works. Could be romantic, right? Sophia's suspicion deepened. This sudden attentiveness was completely out of character. Sure. I guess I'll see you soon then. She was still pondering these questions when, to her surprise, her doorbell rang less than 30 minutes later. Ethan never rang the bell. He had keys, and he was rarely so prompt. Opening the door, Sophia found Daniel standing there, a grocery bag in hand. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" He held up the bag with a slightly embarrassed smile. "I drove by and noticed your building was still dark. Thought you might need some supplies." The thoughtful gesture touched Sophia deeply. "That's incredibly kind of you. Please come in." Daniel stepped inside his flashlight, providing much-needed illumination. The crews outside said power should be restored within a couple of hours. "Let me make you some coffee, as a thank you," Sophia offered. "The stove is gas, so I can at least manage that." As they talked in the kitchen, Sophia heard the unmistakable sound of a key in the lock. Her eyes widened in sudden panic. Ethan was early, far earlier than expected, given his usual tardiness. "Babe got us some amazing Thai food and that wine you." Ethan stopped short as he entered the kitchen, taking in the scene before him. Sophia and Daniel standing together, mugs of coffee in hand. His handsome face darkened instantly. "What the hell is this?" Sophia stepped forward quickly. "Ethan, this is Daniel Harper, my boss." "Daniel, this is my husband Ethan." Daniel, ever professional, extended his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Ethan. I was just dropping off some emergency supplies since the power's still out." Ethan ignored the outstretched hand, his blue eyes icy. "How thoughtful," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "And here I thought bosses usually delegated that kind of errand." The naked hostility in his tone was shocking. Sophia felt a flush of embarrassment and anger. "Daniel was being kind, Ethan." Daniel, recognizing the volatile situation, excused himself quickly. At the door, he spoke quietly to Sophia. "Are you going to be all right?" The concern in his eyes made Sophia's throat tighten. "I'll be fine. Thank you again for the supplies." When she returned to the kitchen, Ethan was pouring himself a generous glass of wine, movements sharp with barely contained anger. "Well, isn't he the perfect gentleman?" he sneered. "Bringing supplies, checking up on you. Does he wipe your ass too?" "That's enough," Ethan, Sophia said firmly. "Daniel was being considerate, which is more than I can say for you most of the time." Ethan laughed harshly. "Considerate? From where I'm standing, it looks like my wife's boss has a thing for her. And maybe," his eyes narrowed accusingly, "she has a thing for him too." "You don't know what you're talking about," Sophia said, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "Don't I?" Ethan leaned against the counter. "You didn't come home last night." "Where exactly did you stay, Sophia?" "I stayed at a colleague's place," she said carefully. "The roads were flooded, and it wasn't safe to drive." "A colleague," Ethan repeated skeptically. "Would this colleague happen to be your devoted boss?" Sophia hesitated, trapped between a lie and a truth that would be misinterpreted. "Yes," she admitted finally, "but it wasn't what you're implying. Daniel has a guest room. Everything was completely professional." Ethan's face darkened further. "Professional, right? Because men like Daniel Harper always have purely professional intentions when they invite beautiful women to spend the night." The hypocrisy was staggering. "That's rich coming from you," Ethan, Sophia shot back. "How many nights have you spent not coming home at all? How many business meetings have you had that smelled like perfume and alcohol? So that's what this is, payback." Ethan's voice rose. "You're sleeping with your boss to get back at me for some imagined affairs." "I am not sleeping with Daniel." Sophia's frustration boiled over. "And your affairs aren't imagined, Ethan. They're painfully, obviously real. Do you think I'm blind?" For a moment, genuine surprise flashed across Ethan's features. Then his expression hardened again. "You don't know anything," he muttered, turning away. "I'm going to take a bath. Maybe you should call your boss back since you two were having such a cozy time." He stalked off toward the bathroom, leaving Sophia trembling with anger and hurt. For several minutes she stood perfectly still, trying to calm her racing heart. She heard the water running in the bathroom, the familiar sounds of Ethan preparing his bath, one of his few consistent habits, using hot soaks to de-stress after what he claimed were difficult business meetings. Tonight, though, something drove her toward the bathroom, a need to continue the confrontation, to finally force Ethan to acknowledge the truth of what their marriage had become. As she approached the bathroom door, Sophia heard something that made her stop short. A soft, feminine laugh, definitely not Ethan's, coming from inside. A woman's voice murmured something indistinct, followed by Ethan's deeper tones and another quiet laugh. Sophia stood frozen, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. Ethan wasn't alone in there. He had brought someone into their home, into their bathroom, while she stood just down the hall. The audacity, the sheer disrespect of it was breathtaking. Before she could think better of it, Sophia pushed open the bathroom door. The scene that greeted her would be burned into her memory forever. Ethan reclined in their bathtub surrounded by bubbles from the expensive bath products. Sophia had bought a glass of wine in his hand, and nestled against his chest, her dark skin gleaming wet in the candlelight, was a stunningly beautiful woman Sophia had never seen before. For one eternal moment no one moved. Ethan's eyes widened in shock as they met Sophia's, while the woman, apparently not expecting an interruption, seemed more confused than embarrassed. Then reality crashed in like a physical blow. Sophia felt her knees give way beneath her, collapsing to the tile floor as the full impact of Ethan's betrayal hit her. Tears sprang to her eyes, hot and unstoppable, streaming down her face as she stared at the man she had once believed loved her. "Sophia," Ethan said, scrambling to sit up, sloshing water over the side of the tub. The woman moved away from him slightly, reaching for a towel, uncertainty written across her beautiful features. "This isn't," he began, then apparently thought better of whatever lie he had been about to offer. Instead, his expression shifted, his face rearranging itself into a mask of righteous indignation. "Well, well," he said, voice hardening, as he gestured toward the hallway. "Did your precious boss leave already? Or is he waiting in our bedroom?" Sophia stared at him through her tears, disbelief mingling with her pain. Even now, caught in the most blatant infidelity imaginable, Ethan was trying to turn this around on her. "How dare you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "How dare you bring her to our home?" The woman in the tub looked increasingly uncomfortable, glancing between Sophia and Ethan with growing alarm. "Ethan, you said you were separated," she said quietly. "You told me your wife moved out weeks ago." A fresh wave of pain washed over Sophia at this revelation. Not only had Ethan cheated, he'd been systematically lying to this woman as well, creating an entire fictional narrative to facilitate his betrayal. "Shut up," Ethan snapped, ignoring his companion's words entirely. "Don't act so shocked and innocent, Sophia. We both know you've been screwing your boss. That's why you didn't come home last night, isn't it? Too busy spreading your legs for Daniel Harper to care about your marriage." Each word was like a slap. The vicious accusations all the more painful for how wildly, completely untrue they were. Sophia had remained faithful despite Ethan's neglect, despite the growing connection she felt with Daniel, despite everything. She stared at her husband, this cruel, selfish stranger wearing Ethan's handsome face, and something inside her finally irrevocably broke. With surprising steadiness, Sophia rose to her feet, tears still streaming down her face, but a new clarity in her eyes. Ethan continued his tirade, his words growing more vicious, more accusatory with each passing moment, but she barely heard him. Years of excuses, justifications, and desperate hope fell away, leaving only the painful truth. The man she had loved, had fought for, had defended against her family's concerns, had never really existed. "This is over," she said, her quiet words somehow cutting through Ethan's angry monologue. "We're over." Ethan's face darkened again, the mask of contrition slipping to reveal the anger beneath. "This is about him, isn't it? Your boss. You think he wants you for anything more than a quick fuck. You think a man like that would ever see you as anything but a temporary amusement." The woman in the tub began gathering her things clearly, wanting no part of this ugly confrontation. "I should go," she murmured, reaching for her clothes. But Sophia barely noticed her. All her attention was focused on Ethan, on the hateful words spewing from the mouth that had once whispered love to her. Something hot and fierce rose within her chest, not just anger but a profound liberating fury at all the months and years she had wasted on this man. Before she fully realized what she was doing, Sophia had crossed the small bathroom in 2 quick strides. Her hand connected with Ethan's cheek in a slap so forceful his head snapped to the side, water sloshing violently in the tub. "You never deserved me," she said, her voice low and vibrating with emotion. "And I never deserved this." Then, in a move that surprised even herself, Sophia turned on her heel and strode purposefully out of the bathroom, down the hall, and straight to the front door. She could hear Ethan shouting behind her, scrambling out of the tub, but she didn't slow her pace. Daniel was just getting into his car when Sophia burst out of the building's front entrance. He turned at the sound of her approach, concern immediately washing over his features as he took in her tear-streaked face. "Sophia, what happened? Are you—" She didn't let him finish. In 3 quick steps, she was standing before him, and before either of them could speak, Sophia did what she had been denying herself for months. She reached up, pulled Daniel's face down to hers, and kissed him full on the lips. The kiss was everything. Ethan's hadn't been in a long, long time, tender yet passionate. A connection that went beyond the physical to something deeper and more meaningful. Daniel froze for a half-second in surprise before his arms came around her, steadying her trembling body against his. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Daniel studied her face with careful eyes. "Sophia," he said softly, What happened in there? Fresh tears threatened, but Sophia held them back. I finally saw the truth, she replied, her voice stronger than she had expected. And now I'm choosing something better. Behind them, the lights in the apartment building suddenly blazed to life as power was restored to the neighborhood. It felt like a sign illumination after darkness, clarity after confusion. Will you take me away from here? Sophia asked, looking up at Daniel with new determination. I don't think I can be in that apartment tonight. Daniel nodded his eyes, never leaving hers. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. As they drove away, Sophia didn't look back at the building where Ethan was undoubtedly still raging. That chapter of her life was over. What came next would be of her own choosing on her own terms. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, that thought filled her not with fear but with hope. Chapter 9. New Beginnings. The drive to Daniel's apartment passed in a blur of streetlights and silence. Sophia sat in the passenger seat, her mind still reeling from the events of the evening, the confrontation, the devastating discovery, the liberating fury that had propelled her out of her marriage and into Daniel's arms. Now, as the adrenaline began to fade, the full weight of what had happened settled on her shoulders. Daniel respected her silence, occasionally glancing over with concern, but not pressing her to speak. When they arrived at his building, he led her inside with a gentle hand at the small of her back, his touch providing an anchor amid the emotional chaos. Inside his apartment, Daniel moved with quiet efficiency, brewing tea and setting out a plate of simple food that Sophia hadn't realized she needed until she saw it. He placed a soft throw blanket around her shoulders as she sat on his sofa, still slightly dazed. You don't have to talk about it, he said, finally taking a seat across from her, rather than beside her, giving her space without abandoning her to her thoughts. But I'm here when you're ready. Sophia wrapped her hands around the warm mug of tea, drawing strength from its heat. I found Ethan in our bathtub with another woman, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. He had the audacity to bring her to our home, knowing I might walk in at any moment. Daniel's expression darkened, but he kept his voice calm. I'm so sorry, Sophia. The worst part wasn't even finding them together, she continued, the words spilling out now that she had started. It was his reaction. Instead of apologizing or showing any remorse, he immediately accused me of cheating with you. A bitter laugh escaped her. Even caught red-handed, he tried to make it my fault. That's classic manipulation, Daniel observed quietly. Deflecting blame, reversing victim and offender. Sophia nodded, taking a sip of tea. It's been his pattern for so long. I just couldn't see it clearly until tonight. She looked up, meeting Daniel's concerned gaze. I'm sorry about what happened outside the kiss. I shouldn't have put you in that position. Daniel's expression softened. You have nothing to apologize for, Sophia. Nothing at all. It was impulsive, she admitted. In that moment, I needed to claim something for myself, to take control back. I understand, Daniel said, and she believed he truly did. What happens next is entirely up to you. No pressure, no expectations. The simple statement, so different from the emotional manipulation Ethan had subjected her to for years, brought tears to Sophia's eyes again. I need to file for divorce, she said, the words, both painful and liberating. As soon as possible, Daniel nodded. I know an excellent family law attorney. High ethical standards, very discreet. I can put you in touch with her whenever you're ready. Thank you, Sophia whispered. Then hesitantly, Daniel, about us, whatever this is between us, I need time. I can't jump from one relationship into another. It wouldn't be fair to either of us. I'm not going anywhere, Sophia. Daniel replied with gentle certainty. Take all the time you need. I'll be here as a friend, as a colleague, as whatever you need me to be. The promise, offered without expectation of return, soothed something raw and aching in Sophia's heart. For the first time since discovering Ethan's betrayal, she felt the tightness in her chest begin to ease. Would it be all right if I stayed in your guest room tonight, she asked. I don't think I can face going back to that apartment. Of course, Daniel assured her. Stay as long as you need. That night alone in Daniel's guest room, Sophia cried not for the marriage she had lost, but for the years she had wasted trying to save something that had been broken from the start. When the tears finally subsided, she felt hollowed out but strangely peaceful, as if the grief had cleared space for something new to grow. The following week passed in a whirlwind of practical matters. With Daniel's support, Sophia consulted the attorney he had recommended, a sharp-minded woman named Jessica Lynn, who laid out her options with compassionate clarity. The evidence of Ethan's infidelity, combined with financial records showing how he had systematically drained their joint accounts, made for a straightforward case. It won't be pleasant, Jessica warned during their initial consultation, but it should be relatively quick. The sooner we file, the sooner you can begin rebuilding your life. Sophia signed the necessary paperwork that same day. When Ethan was served with divorce papers at the bar where he apparently spent most afternoons, His reaction was predictably explosive. He showed up at Sophia's office, demanding to see her, only to be calmly but firmly escorted out by security. "You'll regret this," he shouted as the elevator doors closed on him. "He'll never love you like I did." The scene, while embarrassing, only reinforced Sophia's certainty that she had made the right decision. Ethan's idea of love had always been about possession, not partnership, about what Sophia could give him, not what they could build together. Temporarily unable to return to the apartment she had shared with Ethan, Sophia stayed in Daniel's guest room for several days before finding a small furnished sublet that would tide her over until the divorce was finalized. Daniel helped her move the few personal belongings she had retrieved from her apartment, careful to maintain appropriate boundaries despite the growing closeness between them. At work, Daniel ensured their professional relationship remained above reproach, never giving anyone reason to question Sophia's position or achievements. They continued to collaborate effectively, their natural synergy unaffected by the personal connection developing alongside it. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, Sophia felt steady enough to reach out to her family. The conversation with her mother was one she had dreaded and postponed, expecting "I told you so" remarks that would only deepen her sense of failure. Instead, when Sophia finally called and explained the situation, her mother's response caught her completely off guard. "Oh, sweetheart," Elizabeth Bennet said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that alone. I should have been there for you instead of pushing you away because of my feelings about Ethan." "You tried to warn me," Sophia reminded her. "You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't see." "That doesn't matter now," her mother insisted. "What matters is that you're free of him, and that you know you can always come home. Your sisters and we've missed you terribly." The conversation ended with plans for Sophia to visit the following weekend, a reunion she approached with equal parts nervousness and anticipation. When she arrived at her childhood home, the reception she received overwhelmed her with its warmth. Her mother enveloped her in a fierce hug that seemed to last forever, while her sisters Emily and Chloe hovered anxiously nearby, waiting their turn. "We owe you an apology," Emily said, once they were all settled in the family living room, cups of tea in hand. "We should have found a better way to express our concerns about Ethan. We pushed you right into his arms." "No," Sophia shook her head firmly. "I made my choice. I was so convinced I knew better, that what Ethan and I had was special enough to overcome any obstacle." "Love can be blinding," her mother observed gently, "especially when it's wrapped up in a package as pretty as Ethan Caldwell." The comment startled a laugh from Sophia, perhaps the first genuine laugh she'd managed since that awful night. His looks were quite the distraction, she admitted. "But I've learned that true beauty isn't about perfect features or charm. It's about how someone treats you, how they make you feel about yourself." Chloe leaned forward, curiosity overtaking her usual reserve. "Speaking of how people treat you, Mom mentioned there might be someone new, someone who helped you through all this." Sophia felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "Daniel has been incredibly supportive, but it's not like that. At least not yet. Tell us about him." Her mother encouraged no judgment in her voice, only genuine interest. For the next hour, Sophia found herself describing Daniel, his integrity, his quiet strength, his respect for her mind and abilities. The more she spoke, the more she realized how fundamentally different he was from Ethan, how their connection was built on mutual respect rather than passion alone. "He sounds wonderful," her mother said, when Sophia finally ran out of words. "But I'm proud of you for taking time for yourself first. That shows real wisdom, sweetheart." The weekend with her family proved healing in ways Sophia hadn't anticipated. Their unconditional support, free from recrimination or judgment, helped restore her belief in herself, in her ability to recognize genuine love when she encountered it. When she returned to the city Sunday evening, Sophia felt lighter than she had in months, possibly years. The weight of her failed marriage still ached, but it no longer threatened to crush her. She was moving forward, one careful step at a time. The divorce proceedings progressed with surprising speed. Ethan, for all his initial bluster, seemed to lose interest in fighting once he realized Sophia wouldn't be swayed by his manipulations. When financial disclosures revealed the extent of his mismanagement of their joint resources and his substantial gambling debts, he became eager to settle quickly and quietly. 6 weeks after filing, Sophia sat in Jessica's office, signing the final paperwork that would legally end her marriage to Ethan Caldwell. "Congratulations," Jessica said as Sophia completed the last signature. "It's not often I get to say that about a divorce, but in your case I think it's warranted." Sophia smiled, running her finger over her name. Her maiden name, which she had chosen to reclaim. "It feels strange, sad, but also right. Endings usually are a mixture of both," Jessica observed. "The important thing is what comes next." What came next for Sophia was a period of intentional reconstruction. She found a permanent apartment smaller than the one she had shared with Ethan, but with large windows that filled the space with natural light. She reconnected with friends she had neglected during her marriage, rebuilt her relationship with her family, and focused on her career with renewed energy and purpose. Throughout it all, Daniel remained shortfall of a lover, but a constant friend, supportive without being possessive, interested without being intrusive. They developed a friendship that deepened, gradually built on shared values and mutual respect, rather than the intoxicating but unstable passion she had mistaken for love with Ethan. 3 months after her divorce was finalized, Sophia arrived at work to find a small, elegantly wrapped package on her desk. Inside was a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a phoenix, accompanied by a simple note in Daniel's distinctive handwriting. "Dinner tonight as friends, or perhaps something more entirely your choice." Sophia held the pendant in her palm, feeling its weight and admiring the craftsmanship. The phoenix, a symbol of rebirth and renewal after destruction, it couldn't have been more fitting. She found Daniel in his office, reviewing quarterly projections with his usual focused attention. He looked up as she knocked lightly on his open door, his expression warming when he saw her standing there. "Do you have a moment?" she asked. Daniel set aside his work immediately. "For you always." Sophia entered, closing the door behind her, something she rarely did during their professional interactions. The gesture wasn't lost on Daniel, whose posture straightened slightly, his eyes attentive. "I received your gift," she said, holding up the pendant. "It's beautiful and perfect." "I'm glad you like it," he replied, his tone careful. "I saw it and thought of you immediately, of your strength and resilience these past months." Sophia moved closer to his desk, her heart beating a little faster, but her mind completely clear. "I'd love to have dinner tonight," she said, "and I think I'm ready for it to be something more." The smile that broke across Daniel's face was like sunrise after the longest night, warm, bright, and full of promise. "I was hoping you might say that," he admitted. "I've been patient because I believe what's growing between us deserves the proper foundation. I didn't want to rush you." "I appreciate that more than I can say," Sophia told him sincerely. "My relationship with Ethan was all passion and impulse from the beginning. There was never any solid ground underneath it." She met Daniel's gaze directly. "What I feel for you is different, deeper, steadier, built on something real." Daniel rose from his chair, coming around the desk to stand before her. With gentle fingers, he took the phoenix pendant from her hand. "May I?" Sophia nodded, turning so he could fasten the chain around her neck. His fingers were warm against her skin as he secured the clasp, lingering just a moment longer than necessary. A promise of intimacy to come, but offered without pressure or expectation. When she turned back to face him, Daniel's gray eyes held a depth of emotion that made her breath catch. "Whatever happens between us, Sophia, I want you to know that I see you, truly see you. Your intelligence, your strength, your compassion. I admired you long before I fell in love with you." The word love hung in the air between them, honest and unadorned. Sophia reached up to touch the phoenix pendant now resting against her collarbone. "I think I'm falling in love with you too," she admitted quietly. "It's terrifying after everything that happened with Ethan, but it's also right, like coming home to a place I've been searching for all along." Daniel's smile deepened. "Then we'll figure it out together, one step at a time." He glanced at his watch reluctantly. "Although right now we both have meetings to attend." Sophia nodded, professional responsibility temporarily overriding personal desire. "Dinner at 8, she suggested, already looking forward to the evening ahead. "I'll pick you up at 7:30. Daniel confirmed, his eyes lingering on her face with quiet adoration. "I know just the place." As they both returned to their work duties, Sophia felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The path ahead wasn't certain, life never was, but for the first time in years, she was walking toward her future with open eyes and an open heart, ready to embrace whatever came next. Their dinner that night marked the official beginning of their relationship, though in many ways it felt like a natural continuation of the connection that had been building between them for months. Unlike the whirlwind passion of her romance with Ethan, Sophia's relationship with Daniel deepened, gradually building on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine friendship. 3 months into their relationship, Daniel invited Sophia to accompany him to his family's lakeside home for a long weekend. The setting was idyllic, a rustic, elegant cabin nestled among towering pines with a large deck overlooking crystal-clear waters. They're surrounded by nature's beauty, and away from the pressures of work and city life, they crossed the final threshold of physical intimacy. Their first night together was everything. Sophia's encounters with Ethan had never been tender yet passionate, focused on mutual pleasure rather than selfish gratification. Daniel's touch was reverent, his gray eyes never leaving hers as they explored each other with increasing ardor. When they finally came together fully, Sophia felt tears spring to her eyes at the profound rightness of their connection. Physical, emotional, and spiritual, all at once. "Are you all right?" Daniel had whispered concern, creasing his brow as he noticed her tears. More than all right, Sophia assured him, drawing his face down for a deep, soul-searing kiss. I just never knew it could feel like this, like coming home. In the warm darkness of the lakeside cabin, wrapped in Daniel's strong arms, and listening to the gentle rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her ear, Sophia finally understood what true love meant. It wasn't the desperate clinging passion she had mistaken for love with Ethan, but this steady, powerful current that supported rather than consumed, that lifted rather than drowned. The rest of the weekend passed in a haze of newfound intimacy. Lazy mornings in bed, afternoon swims in the lake, evenings spent talking by the fire, sharing dreams and fears with equal honesty. By the time they returned to the city, something fundamental had shifted between them. They were no longer just dating. They had become partners in the deepest sense of the word. As summer turned to fall, Sophia received word that Ethan had left the city, reportedly moving to the West Coast with his latest girlfriend. The news brought unexpected relief, a final severing of her past that left her free to embrace her future without lingering shadows. At Thanksgiving, Sophia brought Daniel to her family's home, nervous about how they would receive him despite their previous acceptance of her new relationship. She needn't have worried. Within hours, Daniel had charmed her mother with his genuine interest in her prize garden, impressed her father with his knowledge of classic films, and won over both her sisters with his obvious adoration of Sophia. He looks at you like you're the answer to every question he's ever had, Emily observed quietly as they washed dishes after dinner. Nothing at all like the way Ethan looked at you. How did Ethan look at me? Sophia asked, curious about her sister's perception. Emily considered for a moment. Like you were a beautiful possession. He'd acquired something to show off, not someone to share his life with. She glanced toward the living room where Daniel was engaged in animated conversation with their father. Daniel looks at you like he sees your soul and loves every part of it. The simple observation crystallized what Sophia had been feeling for months. With Ethan, she had always been performing somehow, trying to be the perfect wife, to meet his ever-shifting expectations, to justify his treatment of her. With Daniel, she could simply be herself, strengths, flaws, and all. On Christmas Eve, after a quiet dinner at his apartment, Daniel led Sophia to the balcony where a small pine tree had been decorated with tiny white lights. At its base sat a small velvet box. "I'm not rushing you," he said softly as Sophia's eyes widened in understanding. "If you're not ready, I'll wait a month, a year, however long you need. But I wanted you to know that whenever you are ready, this is waiting for you." Sophia knelt beside the tree, her hands trembling slightly as she lifted the box. Inside nestled a stunning yet understated ring, a round diamond flanked by smaller sapphires, set in platinum. It was elegant, timeless, and utterly perfect. "I am ready," she whispered, looking up at Daniel with absolute certainty. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." Daniel knelt beside her, taking the ring from its box with reverent fingers. "Sophia Bennett," he said, his voice steady, despite the emotion shining in his eyes, "you've taught me what true partnership means, to walk beside someone, supporting them without trying to control them, loving them for exactly who they are." He held the ring poised at the tip of her finger. "Will you marry me? Will you build a life with me based on trust, respect, and a love that grows stronger every day?" "Yes," Sophia answered without hesitation, joy bubbling up through her chest and spilling out in a radiant smile. "Yes, I will marry you, Daniel Harper, with all my heart. Yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, just like everything between them, and gathered her into his arms for a kiss that promised a lifetime of happiness. Sophia felt the final piece of her heart heal. The phoenix pendant Daniel had given her months earlier rested against her skin, a constant reminder that from the ashes of her past, something beautiful and enduring had risen. 2 weeks later, Sophia stood in her mother's living room, sharing the news of her engagement with her family. Their joy and wholehearted approval washed over her like a blessing, healing wounds she hadn't even realized, still lingered from their initial rejection of Ethan. "We were wrong," before her mother admitted, embracing her with tears in her eyes. "We pushed too hard against your choice instead of supporting you through it." But this time she clasped Daniel's hand warmly. "This time we're all on the same page. You found a good man, Sophia, a man worthy of you." As Sophia leaned into Daniel's solid presence beside her, surrounded by the love of her family, she silently thanked the universe for bringing her through fire to this moment of perfect peace. The journey had been painful, but the destination, this place of honest love and genuine connection, was worth every tear, every heartache, every moment of darkness that had preceded it. The path to true happiness, she reflected, rarely ran straight, but with the right companion by your side, even the most difficult journey could lead to a destination more beautiful than you ever dared imagine. Chapter 10. The Wedding Day. The spring morning dawned perfect and clear, as if nature itself approved of the union about to take place. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the bridal suite, casting a golden glow over Sophia as she stood before the mirror, hardly recognizing the radiant woman who looked back at her. Her wedding gown was a masterpiece of elegance, ivory silk that flowed like water over her curves, with delicate lace accents that caught the light. Her dark hair was arranged in loose waves adorned with tiny pearl pins that matched the strand at her throat, her mother's pearls worn on her own wedding day. "You look absolutely breathtaking," her mother said, voice thick with emotion, as she adjusted the veil. "Like a princess from a fairy tale." Sophia smiled, her heart overflowing. A fairy tale, with a complicated middle, but a very happy ending. Emily and Chloe bustled around her, making final adjustments to her dress and bouquet, a lush arrangement of cream roses, blue hydrangeas, and fragrant jasmine. A soft knock announced her father's arrival, handsome in his formal suit and barely containing his emotions. "My little girl," he whispered, eyes shining, "you are a vision." The ceremony would take place in the manor's gardens, where rows of white chairs had been arranged on either side of a stone path leading to a flower-adorned arbor. As Sophia and her father waited at the garden entrance, she caught her first glimpse of Daniel standing beneath the arbor, tall and handsome in his tailored suit. The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's canon, signaling the start of the procession. Emily and Chloe moved gracefully down the aisle, in simple blue gowns, followed by Daniel's niece as flower girl, scattering rose petals with solemn concentration. When the music shifted to the wedding march, the assembled guests rose. For a breathless moment, the world seemed to narrow to just two people, Sophia and Daniel, their gazes locking across the distance that separated them. The naked adoration on Daniel's face as he watched her approach brought tears to Sophia's eyes. Unlike Ethan, who had regarded her as a trophy, Daniel looked at her with a reverence that spoke of partnership, of cherishing, not just her beauty, but her entirety, mind, heart, and soul. Each step down the aisle felt like a step away from her painful past and toward a future bright with promise. When they reached the arbor, her father placed her hand in Daniel's with a gentle squeeze of blessing. "You are spectacular," Daniel whispered, as he took both her hands in his, "more beautiful than I ever imagined." The officiant began with words about love's journey, how true love wasn't always found on the first attempt, how sometimes the heart needed to learn difficult lessons before recognizing its perfect match. When the time came for their vows, Daniel spoke first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Sophia, from the moment you walked into my office, you changed my life. Your intelligence, your grace, your quiet strength, all of it captivated me. I promise to love you completely and constantly through whatever life brings our way. I promise to be your steadfast partner, your passionate lover, your trusted confidant, and your most loyal friend. I promise to respect your independence while offering my unwavering support." He paused, thumbs caressing the backs of her hands. "Most of all, I promise to see you, truly see you every day of our life together, and to make sure you never doubt for a single moment how deeply, completely, and eternally you are loved." Tears slipped down Sophia's cheeks as she absorbed the beauty of his promises. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath. "Daniel, you came into my life when I had forgotten what real love looked like, what it felt like to be genuinely valued and respected. You showed me that love doesn't diminish who you are. It magnifies your best self. You taught me that partnership doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding someone who walks beside you, supporting your dreams while sharing their own." Her voice grew stronger. "I promise to love you with an open heart and clear eyes, never taking for granted the gift of your devotion. I promise to be your equal partner in all things, to face life's joys and sorrows with you hand in hand." She reached up to touch his face gently. "And I promise that you will never doubt, not for one moment, that you are the best decision I have ever made." The exchange of rings followed, simple platinum bands, symbolizing their unbroken commitment. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Daniel's kiss was both tender and passionate, a perfect balance of reverence and desire that made Sophia's heart race. "Mrs. Harper," Daniel whispered against her lips, his eyes dancing with joy. The reception was everything they had envisioned: elegant, without being ostentatious; joyful, without being chaotic. They danced their first dance to "At Last" by Etta James, the lyrics about finding true love after a long search, holding special significance. "I never thought I could be this happy," Sophia confessed as Daniel held her close. "It almost doesn't feel real." "It's real," he assured her, pressing a kiss to her temple, "and it's just the beginning of our story." When Sophia's father raised his glass for the toast, his voice resonated with emotion and wisdom. "To Daniel and Sophia," he began, "love isn't always found on the first try. Sometimes we need to learn hard lessons before we recognize the real thing when it comes along. May your marriage be blessed with passion that never fades, friendship that deepens with every passing year, and a love that only grows stronger through whatever life brings your way." The guests echoed the toast enthusiastically, glasses clinking, as Daniel pulled Sophia closer for another kiss. The celebration continued with dancing and dancing, though there had been a somber moment earlier when someone mentioned Ethan. The news of his death 3 months ago in a drunk driving accident had shocked everyone, even Sophia. Despite everything he had put her through, she hadn't wished him such a tragic end. Daniel had held her hand tightly when they heard, understanding her complicated emotions without judgment. "Are you thinking about him?" Daniel asked gently as they shared a quiet moment away from the reception. "Just briefly," Sophia admitted. "It's strange to think he's gone, but mostly I'm thinking about how fortunate I am to have found you, someone who truly sees me and loves me for exactly who I am." Daniel's eyes softened. Life takes unexpected turns, some tragic, some beautiful. He nodded toward the celebration. Today is about celebrating the beautiful turn that brought us together. As the evening continued, Sophia let those thoughts drift away. Daniel led her away from the crowd to a quiet corner of the garden, where a stone bench sat beneath climbing roses, the night air perfumed with their scent. "I have something for you," Daniel said, reaching into his jacket to produce a small velvet box. Inside was a stunning bracelet of sapphires and diamonds that complemented her engagement ring perfectly. "Daniel, it's beautiful," she breathed as he fastened it around her wrist. "Not nearly as beautiful as my wife," he replied, his eyes darkening with desire. "Do you have any idea how much I love you, Sophia Harper? How completely you've captured my heart? Show me," she whispered, lifting her face for his kiss. Daniel's lips claimed hers with newfound possession, still tender, but with an intensity that sent heat spiraling through her body. His hand cradled her neck as the kiss deepened. "I can't wait to have you all to myself," he murmured against her ear, his voice rough with wanting. "To worship every inch of you properly." Sophia shivered at the promise in his words. "Then perhaps we should think about making our exit soon." The remainder of the reception passed in a blur. When it came time for their departure, Sophia changed into an elegant ivory silk dress that clung to her curves in a way that made Daniel's eyes darken appreciatively. The moment the hotel room door closed behind them, Daniel gathered Sophia into his arms, kissing her with all the passion he had been restraining throughout the day. Finally, he breathed against her neck. "Do you have any idea how difficult it's been to keep my hands off you all day?" Sophia laughed softly, her fingers already working at the buttons of his shirt. "About as difficult as it's been for me to wait to do this," she replied, pushing the shirt from his shoulders. "You are breathtakingly handsome, Daniel Harper. And all yours." "All yours," he agreed, reaching to slowly lower the zipper of her dress. "For as long as we both shall live." The dress pooled at her feet, revealing delicate lace lingerie that left Daniel momentarily speechless. "You are a vision," he whispered reverently, his hands warm against her waist as he drew her closer. "My beautiful wife." What followed was a passionate consummation of their vows. Daniel's lovemaking both tender and fierce as he claimed Sophia as his wife in the most primal way possible. Their bodies moved together in perfect harmony, each touch, each kiss, each whispered endearment building toward a crescendo of pleasure that left them both trembling. Afterward, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Sophia's head on Daniel's chest and his fingers tracing patterns along her back, a profound sense of peace settled over them. "I never knew it could be like this," Sophia murmured. "That love could feel so completely right, so safe, yet so exciting." Daniel's arms tightened around her. "This is just the beginning, my love. We have a lifetime of discoveries ahead of us." He tilted her face up to his. "I promise you this, every day of our marriage, I will strive to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me." Sophia traced the beloved contours, tweets by his face. "And I promise to never take for granted the gift of your love," she replied softly. "To remember always that what we've found together is precious beyond measure." As Daniel drew her up for another soul-deep kiss that rekindled the embers of desire, Sophia surrendered herself completely to the joy of loving and being loved by this extraordinary man. The painful lessons of her past had led her here to this moment of perfect unity with her true soulmate. They had both finally found what they truly deserved, a love built on trust, respect, and a passion that would never fade, a love that would sustain them through whatever challenges and triumphs lay ahead in their journey together. Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Sophia Bennett had always been the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room, with her captivating smile, warm eyes that sparkled with intelligence, and a figure that drew appreciative glances. She had never lacked attention from men, but none had affected her the way Ethan Caldwell did from the moment they met at her cousin's wedding reception. "Would you care to dance?" The deep, confident voice had come from behind her as she sipped champagne watching couples twirl across the dance floor. When Sophia turned, she found herself looking into the most mesmerizing blue eyes she'd ever seen. Ethan stood before her, tall and impossibly handsome, with a smile that made her heart skip several beats. "I'd love to," she'd answered, placing her hand in his extended one, feeling an immediate jolt of electricity at his touch. That first dance had led to many more that night, and by the time the reception ended, Sophia knew she'd met someone special. Ethan had asked for her number, called her the very next day, and swept her into a whirlwind romance that left her breathless and completely in love. Their first date had been at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Ethan had ordered wine without looking at the menu, impressing Sophia with his knowledge as he discussed the subtle notes and flavors with the sommelier. By candlelight, he told her about his dreams of starting his own business, his eyes lit with passion and determination. "You're different from other women I've met," he told her, reaching across the table to take her hand, his thumb caressing her knuckles. "There's something special about you, Sophia Bennett, something that makes me want to be a better man." Words like these, spoken with such apparent sincerity, had melted any reservations she might have had. When he kissed her goodnight outside her apartment door, Sophia knew she was already falling for him. The following weeks had been a blur of romantic gestures, surprise picnics in the park, midnight drives, to watch the stars from a hillside, passionate kisses that left her dizzy with desire. Ethan knew exactly how to make her feel cherished, sending flowers to her workplace for no reason, other than "because you deserve beauty in your day," as his notes would say. It was during their third month of dating that Sophia first brought Ethan home to meet her family. The lunch had not gone as she'd hoped. "He's charming, I'll give him," that her mother had said afterward, cornering Sophia in the kitchen while Ethan chatted with her sister in the living room. "But there's something about him that doesn't sit right with me." "You're just being overprotective," Sophia had replied, arranging cookies on a plate, unwilling to hear any criticism of the man who had so thoroughly captured her heart. Her mother had sighed deeply, placing a gentle hand on Sophia's arm. "I've heard things, sweetheart. My friend Helen's daughter dated him briefly last year. He was seeing 2 other women at the same time." Sophia had pulled away, anger flashing in her eyes. "That's just gossip. You don't even know if it's true. Why would they make something like that up? Please just be careful. He's extremely good looking. And men like that, men like what Mom, successful, attentive, actually interested in me." Sophia had snapped, her voice rising. "Men who know exactly what to say to get what they want," her mother had finished quietly. That had been just the beginning. As her relationship with Ethan deepened, so did her family's concerns. Her older sister Emily had pulled her aside at a family barbecue to share similar warnings. "I've heard he has a reputation, Sophia. My friend Lauren works at that marketing firm where he used to be employed. She says he was asked to leave because he was involved with a client's wife." "That's ridiculous," Sophia had defended him fiercely. "He left that job to pursue better opportunities."